Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the rare, uncommon, and common cards that caught my eye as chase cards in the upcoming Zendikar Rising set. So let's get started. Starting with the rares, the first of the rares that came up that caught my eye was Archon of Ameria. So Archon of Ameria is going to fit a number of very important roles in the upcoming standard. It is 12 mana for a 4/5 flyer that says whenever a player casts a card, disable each other card in that player's hand until end of turn. It also has, while on the battlefield, Planeswalker and card effects can't convert loyalty gems unless they're lands, event rules, or resilient supports. This is important for a number of reasons. So one is this is going to be sort of like the Lavinia stopper card for the A Timeless Voyage event, that new event that came out in M21, where your opponent is able to make double matches. This is going to make it so that your opponent is not going to be able to overpower you. The node is going to give this thing hexproof, meaning that your opponent is going to have to use like non-targeted removal to get rid of the thing, which will be pretty difficult for them. And then on top of that, they can't just go and Song of Creation or Eidolon of Blossoms or whatever into a whole bunch of badness, because with the Song of Creation, they play a card and the rest of their hand gets disabled. With Eidolon of Blossoms, well, it can't actually go and convert gems because Eidolon of Blossoms is not a land. Green gem conversion isn't going to work either because those spells that convert green gems or creatures that convert gems to green are not going to be able to do that with this card. So I see this card as being a very useful card, a card that's probably going to see a lot of play in a lot of the events, just for making it so that the opponent can't go off and do crazy things. The next card on my list is going to be here just because it's a leader. So the leader mechanic in Puzzle Quest is very, very strong. There are a lot of cards that make soldier tokens. And so with this card being a leader soldier, that means that whenever you play a soldier token, or any soldier token that you have in play when you play Armament Master, is going to turn into reinforcements for Armament Master. And as soldier tokens tend to have a base power toughness of 1/1, and Armament Master has a base power toughness of 3/3, that means that the tokens going into Armament Master are going to make it a lot better. It also has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, your core creatures get +X until end of turn. X is the number of equipment cards you control times 2. There are a lot of equipment cards coming out in the set that maybe you'll want to try and use. The bottom part of the ability, like the bottom ability, is more meh, whereas the top ability is definitely much sweeter, especially because the core ally tokens have gained the soldier subtype, and there are a bunch of things that are going to be making those core ally tokens. We've got a new spell that's going to be making up to 18 of those ally tokens, which is going to reinforce Armament Master up to 18 times for one cast. So there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with this, and so just as a leader, it's going to be really good. Celestial Colonnade is one of 5 lands that in Paper Magic are called man lands. So it's called a man land in Paper Magic because this is a land that can become a creature. However, in Puzzle Quest, instead of becoming a creature, it's going to buff one of your creatures. All of the man lands are going to convert to 2 different colors. So this one is the white-blue one. It's going to convert 2 to blue, 2 to white. The buff that it provides is sort of, okay, but the gem conversion is really why you want this. So gem conversion is hugely important. We're losing the gates, which is honestly, I think, going to be fine. And we're getting a whole bunch of things that convert gems in the set. So the manlands, like Celestial Colonnade here, are definitely going to be worth having. Creeping Tarpit is the blue-black manland. And this one's activate ability is not quite as good as the Colonnade. The Colonnade gives more power toughness, it gives flying, it gives vigilance. This one gives unblockable, but it also has that added benefit of destroying the top 3 cards of your opponent's library. So this is definitely going to be viable in black and blue. There are a lot of black-blue cards that are going to benefit from stealing things from your opponent's graveyard, like the new Masterpiece, Kraken, Rexiel, and then, of course, Zareth-san. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with this. Definitely looks really cool to me. I really like it. So it's definitely a card that I'm going to want to get my hands on. Crypt of Agadem is going to continue a general theme that you're going to see in this video of just a whole lot of cards that are going to be converting gems. Gem conversion is hugely important in Puzzle Quest. There's a new cycle of lands that are going to be converting 3 gems to 1 color. I love lands that convert to just 1 color, and the existence of these lands means that we're going to have 3 supports for all of the colors now that are going to be able to convert to just 1 color. So yes, I know that the green version of this land did not get reprinted in Standard, but we do have Nissa's Pilgrimage, which fulfills the pretty much the same role, so that's okay. Now, Crypt of Agadem is the black one, and it's going to have landfall black, so when you match 4, or when you match 4 or more gems, the first black card in your hand gains X mana, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. There are a lot of ways that we have of throwing things into our own graveyard, creatures included, so this could really wind up providing a heck of a lot of mana, especially if you're running other black converters. So Crypt of Agadem is a must-have in my books. Desecrated Earth is a really cool card that black hasn't really had anything similar to in Standard. It's got something from the Torment, I want to say, set that does somewhat of a similar thing, but this is just a purely better version of that card. So this thing is 12 mana, it's a spell, and it destroys an opposing land support. Now there's probably going to be a lot of land supports running around, and so black having a way of getting rid of those is pretty cool. But the other part of this card is the part that really stands out to me. So the if you can't. You destroy 8 non-black gems, then your opponent discards a card and loses X life, where X is the number of black gems. As we saw with Crypt of Agadem, and as we're going to be seeing throughout this video, there's a heck of a lot of gem conversion in this set, and so we're going to have a lot of really easy ways of converting gems. And since we're going to have a lot of really easy ways of converting gems, the opponent loses X life could actually be rather significant. And since we're going to be converting ideally a bunch of gems to black, when we destroy 8 non-black gems, ideally that also is going to go ahead and create a cascade for us. So if you were to run this, say, in conjunction with something like Pyromancer's Goggles, as you're destroying those gems, maybe this destroys goggle triggers, or maybe the cascade that it creates will destroy goggle triggers, and you'll get even more of these. So I could see this as a way of just completely wiping out your opponent's lands, and then making your opponent discard and lose a whole bunch of life in conjunction with the goggles. So Desecrated Earth stands out to me as a really, really exceptional card. I cannot wait to play with this card. Ameria The Sky Ruin is the white version of the Agadem land. And so this one's going to convert 3 gems to white, and then it has, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if there are 10 or more white gems, return the first creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield under your control. This is incredibly powerful, right? Because all you need are 10 white gems, and if you're running white gem conversion, you're probably going to have that. And since white has generally a bunch of creatures that are going to be having like Defender or Vigilance or things like that, they're probably going to start getting a whole bunch of creatures in their graveyard just for blocking your stuff, and then they're going to go ahead and get them back every single turn. It's not like this doesn't give you a creature back on a turn as long as they have those gems out. So I see Ameria The Sky Ruin being a really powerful land. As a gem converter, it does quite a lot. It's very cool, and I must have it. Enigma Thief. So this is going to play into the whole rogue thing. There are a number of rogues that are really cool in this set, and I think that we'll be able to make some really cool rogue decks, which is nice. But Enigma Thief is no exception to that. So Enigma Thief is 20 for a 7/7. It's got flying, and when a rogue creature you control attacks, if this card is in your hand, it gains 4 mana. Now, it doesn't say a rogue creature other than Enigma Thief, so let's say that you've got 3 rogues on the battlefield, then this thing is going to be gaining 12 mana per turn. So getting more Enigma Thieves down on the battlefield is going to be pretty easy to do. This might even wind up actually being a fair card to pair with Zareth-san, as Zareth-san is going to go from your hand directly onto the battlefield for free to bounce if you bounce a creature that you have in play that is a rogue. So Enigma Thief could be returned to your hand and then start gaining mana from Zareth-san and your other rogues attacking. But not just that, this creature actually has a really strong enter the battlefield effect, which would make it even better of a pairing with Zarasan, because this thing, when it enters the battlefield, if your opponent has 5 or less cards in hand, you get to bounce one of your opponent's creatures. You return it to their hand. But then you also get to repeat that process for an opposing non-land support. So you could make it so that this thing is bounced with Zarathsan. It's going to start getting mana back from Zarathsan attacking. Then when you play it again, you start bouncing and controlling your opponent's board. And then if you draw another Zarathsan, you could go ahead and rinse, lather, and repeat. And all of that, and it has a 7/7 body, which is very solid. So I see this being definitely a really good card. And I am excited to try it in a rogue deck to see if rogues are actually pretty strong in Puzzle Quest. They are in paper right now. Gigantoform. Oh man, Gigantoform is so crazy, guys. So Volrath is already a thing. Volrath is like crazy strong, and Volrath changes a creature's base power toughness to 7/5. This thing changes a creature's base power toughness to 8/8. Now it does need to be a non-token creature, but that's okay. You can just put it on any of our new leaders, and there are a lot of them. You could make an Angie deck and throw this thing on Angie and watch Angie just laugh her way into berserking and trampling your opponent to death. And then on top of that, we've also got like the little critter that this is on. That the art of this card looks kind of like a Scoot Swarm. And so Scooter's going to be getting a huge boost with Gigantiform, because you just put this thing on Scooter and then you just laugh at your opponent because they're going to have giant insects ripping their guts out. It's terrible. Yeah, so the kicker is going to make it so that the creature has, when it deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, you fetch the first aura card from your library. I don't know that that's like a really big thing that I'll be doing to be able to get additional auras from my deck, but I definitely want to change my creature's base power toughness to 8/8. So this thing is absolutely bonkers, especially because we're getting so many leaders. Super, super bonkers. Now, I was just talking about leaders. Goblin Guide is another leader in the set. I love goblins, and Goblin Guide is no exception to that. So this is our first goblin leader that's actually able to get a power toughness boost from reinforcing, because Squee was our previous goblin leader but could not actually power up from reinforcements. Goblin Guide is very cool in that it's only 6 mana. It's a 2/2 with haste. It's got bravery. It's a leader. It's a leader of goblins. Goblins make a heck of a lot of tokens. And it has that new, when this creature attacks, shuffle the board. So if you're unfamiliar with what shuffling the board is, when there are no available matches left on the board shuffles. Right? It shuffles all of the gems. Now, you shouldn't actually be able to get a match from the board shuffling, but it is going to reconfigure all of the gems. Then you're going to destroy 3 gems, and each opponent's land support gains 1 shield. So when you destroy the gems, that could actually go ahead and give you some mana. And then giving the opponent's land supports 1 shield is honestly really not a big deal. So Goblin Guide is super sweet. I see this being an absolute powerhouse with something like Goblin Goliath in a Koth deck. There's a whole bunch of goblin stuff. I mentioned in my Mythics and Masterpiece video that I love goblins. Goblin Guide is no exception. Grappling Hook is kind of like a poor person's Embercleave, except it is in some ways almost kind of better. I don't know. It's definitely really good. So Grappling Hook is 16 mana. It has that little thing on the bottom left over here, the sword with a 3, meaning that whenever a creature you control attacks, this card, if it's in your hand, is going to gain 3 mana. While it's on the board, your first creature gains double strike, and when your first creature attacks, target opposing creature gains defender until end of turn. So it's very similar to Embercleave. It's 16 mana instead of 23. It does not give a +2/+2 bluff. It does not have flash, but it does give your first creature double strike, just like Embercleave does. And it has, when your first creature attacks, target opposing creature gains defender, instead of giving a creature berserker and trample. So what this is going to do is it's going to make it so you get to pick which creature your double striker is going to hit, which is selectively going to be better than Embercleave, but it's not going to always be better than Embercleave. The other benefit that this card has to Embercleave is that this is colorless, so you don't actually have to throw it in a red deck, which means that we're going to be able to do a lot more fun shenanigan-y things with creatures having double strike that couldn't have otherwise had double strike unless they were in a red deck. So I see this being an absolute must-have. It's going to be really, really strong. Hagra Mauling is beautiful. It's 10 mana to destroy target creature your opponent controls. And if your opponent controls a land sport, this is only going to cost 7 mana instead of 10. But it doesn't end there. It also has landforming, create a Hagra Brood Pit token. So what this, I think, will mean is that when you make that horizontal match, if you cast this card on a turn that you make a horizontal match, then when you destroy your opponent's creature, you're also going to get a support on the battlefield that is going to convert gems to black. So not only it's kind of like a new version of Death Sprout, but it's really only good for decks that have black, right? They're not going to be like, you can throw this in green. But nonetheless, this is going to replace Death Sprout in every single one of my black decks if this creates a token that actually converts gems to black from the landforming. So we'll have to see what landforming does, but this stands out to me as like a crazy good card, guys. Like crazy good. Inscription of Abundance is here just because green is losing all of its removal. And this is going to be a non-targeted way that green is going to be able to remove things. So this is 7 mana. It's got Flash. It's got Kicker 5, so you can drain 5 mana from your hand when you play this in order to get the Kicker ability. And target creature you control gets a permanent +3/+3 buff. Then that creature gains life, then you gain life equal to that creature's power. And then with the Kicker, so if you pay that 5 mana, then that creature gets yet another +3/+3 buff and fights the first opposing creature. So if you're playing this in, say, a green gem conversion deck with Song of Creation, the Kicker is going to be no really big deal. You're going to give +6/+6 to a creature. You're going to gain life equal to that creature's power, and you're going to fight the first opposing creature with the thing, ideally, that you just gave that +6/+6 buff to. So it gives you kind of a way of killing your opponent's creatures. And if you aren't kicking it and killing your opponent's creatures, it's still giving you a way of buffing your creatures and gaining life. So this is a very cool card. I don't know that this will be enough to deal with all of the loss of things like Death Sprout and Casualties of War and Assassin's Trophy, but it's still really, really good, and I want to try it out. Zandu Mammoth. This card is beautiful. So it's 15 for a 5/5. It has landfall, so whenever you match 4 or more gems, this creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn, which is absolutely bonkers because, once again, green gem conversion. So anytime those green gems create a landfall, this creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. It's pretty easy to loop and get like a crazy amount of landfalls in a turn. So this thing could really easily go up to like 100+ power just from landfalls, and then just laugh at the opponent as it kills them with its massive tusks, or its trunk, or whatever other part of an elephant you could imagine killing someone. But this thing could totally do it. Then, if that wasn't enough, it also has landforming to create a Kazandu Valley token, which should just be a support land that converts gems to green, which is just going to help enable it to get landfall and do a tusky laugh at things. So, yeah, absolutely beautiful. I want this hairy bugger. Lava Claw Reaches is the red-black manland. So this one is going to convert gems to red and black. And then for its little special bonus buff for your creature, your first creature gets +2/+2, and then that creature gets +X/+0, where X is either your black or your red mana bonus, whichever is higher. So if you're using this in a red-black deck, your red or black bonus should be at least +4, so it's giving at least +6 to the creature, which is definitely solid, especially given that you're getting gem conversion from this too. So definitely a good card. Legion Angel. This is beautiful. This thing does a lot of things. This thing does a heck of a lot of things, especially for a rare. So it's 14 for a 6/5. It's got flying, and it's a leader. It's a leader for angels. It's our second angel leader that has existed in Puzzle Quest. But I actually kind of like this one more than the other one in a lot of ways. So Legion Angel has, when this creature enters the battlefield, another non-token creature you control gets +4/+4, gains flying, and gains the angel and warrior subtypes. So that angel and warrior subtyping that it gives to the other creature, along with the +4/+4 buff, those are all permanent buffs. So you play this thing, and not only are you getting a 6/5 for 14 that has leader angel, but you're also going to be buffing another one of your creatures, +4/+4, and giving it the angel and warrior subtypes along with flying. Now, giving it like angel and warrior subtypes is like, okay, whatever. But nonetheless, it does actually do a whole lot of making your stuff even beefier. There are a number of things that are going to be making angel tokens. So I just see this as being a really good card, and leader is always worth having. So Legion Angel is going to be a card you're going to want to have. Maddening Cacophony is the first card on this list that's more of like, I'm just interested in seeing what it does, and it could be really good, but it also could be absolute garbage. So it's 6 mana, and it's 6 mana to destroy the top 8 cards of your opponent's library. Now it's also got kicker 10, and this is where the card gets interesting. So you may pay 10 mana when you play this card. If you do, destroy the top 8 additional cards from your opponent's library. Then you gain X loyalty. X is the number of spell cards in your opponent's graveyard. Now, if you kick this thing, you're going to be milling 16 cards from your opponent's deck. If you're playing this card, you're probably using other cards that are going to be milling your opponent's deck. So this, ideally, along with the other cards, is going to make it so that your opponent has quite a lot of spells in their graveyard. And if that is the case, then you could actually get an incredible amount of loyalty from this card. So I could see this being a really cool card and a way of getting a whole bunch of loyalty. I don't know that it'll be something better than, say, Whirlwind of Thought, which already gets you a bunch of loyalty for playing non-creature cards, but it could be really good. So gaining loyalty always has the opportunity to be something that's very powerful. Moldshambler. This fungus beast is the star of the party, especially because Song of Creation exists. This is the star of the party because it's a fungi. Now, this fungus beast, when it enters the battlefield, you destroy an opponent's non-land support. This effect can affect Vanguard supports. Now, it's important to realize that it says when it enters the battlefield. So if you use flicker effects, things like Thassa or Teferi, you could go ahead and flicker this 1 to 2 times a turn, maybe more. And in doing so, just absolutely eradicate all of your opponent's supports. But it doesn't end there. It also has kicker 4, destroy the next 3 non-land supports from your opponent's library. So when this card enters the battlefield, you can also kick that 4 to drain 4 mana from your hand to then destroy the next 3 non-land supports from your opponent's library. So let's say that your opponent gets off an early game Song of Creation against you. You play Moldshambler with the kicker. You destroy the Song of Creation, and if they don't have any other supports in their library, which is very reasonably possible because most of those Song of Creation decks just run a whole bunch of gem conversion, you then destroy the next 3 copies of Song of Creation from your opponent's library. There are only 4 copies of each card in any player's deck, which means that one casting of Moldshambler says goodbye to Song of Creation. There's a lot of Song of Creation hate in this set, in addition to the nerf to Song of Creation, but Moldshambler is definitely like up there amongst my favorites because it's not just good against Song of Creation, it's good against like anything that plays supports. And there's so many good supports that are coming out in this set between the equipment and the mana producers and yada yada yada. And I know that I'm saying non-land mana producers, right? That this thing is absolutely a boss, like super, super boss. Love this card. I'm very glad it exists. Nahiris Lithoforming is one of the cards in the set that I'm actually personally most excited for. I've been saying a lot of times that Koth makes out like a bandit with Zendikar, and Nahiris Lithoforming plays a huge role in Koth making out like a super bandit. So this is 7 mana. It's got a stored mana cost of 6, so a grand total of 13 mana. And the mana bonuses in your Planeswalker's colors are reduced by X until end of turn. Then draw up to X cards and destroy X times 3 gems of other colors that are not in your Planeswalker's colors. X is this card's stored mana. So, this is so good. All right. So you draw up to X cards and destroy X times 3 gems, right? So that means that you're going to draw up to 6 cards and destroy up to 18 gems that are not of your Planeswalker's colors. Now, the mana bonuses of your Planeswalker's colors are reduced by X until end of turn, but Koth has an absolutely massive +9 bonus to red, which means that if you cast this thing with Koth, you're going to draw 6 cards, you're going to destroy 18 non-red gems, and your red mana bonus is still +3. You're just going to get a whole bunch of cards, a whole bunch of mana, and then a whole bunch of loyalty. And let's not forget about Koth's first and third abilities that destroy non-red gems and give your creatures buffs based on the number of red gems. This card alone is going to maintain Koth's S tier list. Drawing cards in Koth and getting even more of Koth's first ability, but in a better form as a spell that you're going to be able to just recast over and over again with all the spell recursion that we have, or things that fetch and play spells. This is beautiful. This card, oh man, this is like This is maybe the rare that I want the most. It's hard to say, but I'm going really hard for Koth in this set, and I must have this. I must. Quest for the Goblin Lord. Yes, bow down to the goblins. Although this top thing looks way more like an ape than a goblin to me. Look at this. See this thing here. It's much more ape-like. Like this is definitely a goblin. This, I don't know what the artist was going for. I'm gonna be honest. A sliver, like I don't know, with the chin, and then I don't know. But nonetheless, this this card is beautiful. So it's a 6 mana support. When a goblin creature enters the battlefield under your control, reinforce this support. This is huge because it doesn't discriminate against tokens. Tokens are going to reinforce the support. As long as this support is reinforced 5 or more times, your goblin creatures get +4/+0. And as long as this support is reinforced 12 or more times, your goblin creatures get +4/+0 and gain double strike. So this is just going to make it so that all your goblins have double strike. We've got a new goblin leader. That goblin leader is going to have double strike. We're going to pretend that Goblin Goliath is going to get fixed, and his activated gems aren't just going to make your goblins permanently have double strike, which means that this double strike is going to be even more valuable, and your goblins are going to be smashing face. So I absolutely love this card. I very much so want it. Raging Ravine is the red-green manland. This just makes it so that it buffs creature a lot, right? +7/+7 for the activate gem. And then it converts gems to green and red. Very typical green-red stuff, but gem conversion is key. Roiling Vortex is our next big piece of major Song of Creation hate, but it's also hate against a whole bunch of other things that exist in the game. Like, there's so many Planeswalker abilities, especially in the higher tiers, that are going to fetch cards and give them mana, or just give you mana in sort of indirect ways. Roiling Vortex just sort of laughs at your opponent for doing that. So at the beginning of each player's turn, you deal 2 damage to that player. Okay, that's going to hit you too. When a card a player controls gains mana from a source that is not from a match, deal 11 damage to that player. Yeah, that's nasty, right? So let's say that your opponent plays Days Undoing, which is probably going to become a really popular card with Finale of Eternity coming out of Standard, right? I think it's Eternity. Is it Revelation? I think it's actually Revelation. I'm mixing them up. All those finales, dang them. But nonetheless, Days Undoing is going to make your opponent draw 5 cards, and it's going to give each of those cards 3 mana, which means that this thing is then going to immediately burn your opponent for 55 damage. Your opponent plays Song of Creation and starts gaining a whole bunch of mana from Song of Creation. They're going to wish they didn't. This thing is going to burn the heck out of them. Song of Creation is going to have, Resourceful 5, I want to say. So that means that there are 5 opportunities for them to gain mana, meaning that that gives this thing an opportunity to do 55 damage to your opponent's face every single turn. Because, Song of Creation decks are designed to just sort of go off and do that. Or, Brokon uses his 3rd ability, and boom, you hit Brokon for 33 damage. Or, I don't know, a support decides to give your opponent a whole bunch of full mana to all the cards in their hand because, Timeless Voyage wants to do that kind of thing. So you burn your opponent for up to 66 damage to the face for that thing existing. Yeah, Roiling Vortex, super cool. I don't know that I'll use it too much, but it's definitely like a card that I could see myself throwing in decks and throwing into events where I know that I'm going to be going up against Song of Creation decks and then just laughing at my opponents for it. Furthermore, this can also do horrible stuff in Legacy, like if your opponent's playing Blue Sun Zenith decks, you just go, you're going to wish you didn't do that, my dude. Scooter! Scoot Swarm! This thing is going to be a beautiful insect. It's 8 for a 2/2. It's got, when you match 5 or more green gems, you reinforce this creature 2 times. There's a heck of a lot of green gem conversion. Matching 5 green gems is not difficult. It's not saying that you need to make a swap. It's just any match, so that's good. And then it has landfall green, so any match of 4 or more is going to create X insect tokens, where X is the number of this creature's reinforcements. So if you put Gigantiform on this thing, all of those times that it reinforces itself, it's going to get pretty big. And then not only that, but then you've also got Scoot Mob, which is going to be eating up all these little insect tokens. And you can imagine all of the horrible things happening because you're probably going to Gigantiform the Scoot Mob also. So Scoot Swarm and Scoot Mob are both going to be getting 8/8 for all their reinforcements, which are going to be going nuts because of Scoot Swarm. And while I don't see this being a top tier card, I see it as being a top tier fun card that you just smash your opponent's face with. Soul Shatter is just super good removal. It's an 8 mana removal card. The art is beautiful, but even if we ignore the art, it destroys an opposing Vanguard support with the highest base mana cost. And if your opponent doesn't have a Vanguard, that's okay because you destroy the opponent's creature with the highest base mana cost. That's usually going to be one of your opponent's best, if not their best creature, and it's going to entirely ignore hexproof, which means that this is going to completely shatter the soul of Gaia's Revenge, which I know a lot of you are going to like. Stirring Wildwood is going to be the green-white version of the manland. This gives the creature +3/+4 reach and trample. So yeah, nonetheless, it's gem conversion. Gem conversion is good. Throne of Mackindy, I went over in the rare video because of the construct that has kicker, but nonetheless, this just seems like a really cool card that you don't even necessarily need that construct for to be good, because at the beginning of your turn, you're going to convert 2 gems to loyalty, which is already fine, and then you reinforce this support, which means that this thing's going to be able to get an absurd number of shields, like an absolutely unfairly absurd number of shields, which means all those cards that make it so that you can power up a creature based on the shield total of like one of your supports, they're going to be beautiful with Throne of Mackindy. But then it also has a bottom half. When you drain mana from your hand for a kicker effect, convert X gems to your Planeswalker's colors. Then the support loses all its reinforcements. X is 3 plus the number of this support's reinforcements. Well, okay, so I see that as being like a huge gem conversion bomb that you just pay a kicker cost and then boom, you get all the mana in the world from converting a whole bunch of gems. So as long as your deck isn't like all kicker cards, there's just like 1 or 2 kicker cards, then it makes it so that those pretty heavy kicker costs from things like Rite of Replication aren't going to actually hurt you that much because you kick something and then boom, you get all your mana back and then some. So Throne of Mackindy, big win. It definitely makes kicker a lot more appealing of a mechanic. Training Grounds. This card is just absolute gorgeousness. It's 8 mana. It's a support enchantment. It's got 3 shields. At the beginning of your turn, destroy and trigger 2 of your activated gems. So that alone would make this card worth using because just being able to freely destroy and trigger 2 of your gems every turn is awesome. Think things that have really strong activated gems, like Pyromancer's Goggles or that new kicker artifact that converts gems to your Planeswalker colors. There's a lot of things. A lot of things. Training Grounds is very, very good. And if that wasn't it, it has when you drain mana from your hand for a kicker effect, gain 3 mana. So this is going to help take away the sting of using kicker a little bit. It's going to make the cards that have lower kicker costs definitely feel a lot more manageable to use. So Training Grounds is going to be a must-have for me. Valik, the Molten Pinnacle, is the mono red version of its cycle, right? The Agadem group. So it's going to convert 3 gems to red, and when you convert 3 or more gems to red, deal 3 damage to your opponent's Planeswalker. I don't know how many cards are going to be able to convert 3 gems or more to red, but nonetheless, it's still a land that converts to red and burns your opponent for 3 every turn. So that's definitely a win in my books. Now, that's it for the rares, so let's get into the commons and uncommons. Don't worry, there aren't actually that many of them, and many of them are very similar because, well, there's the whole pathway cycle. Now, of course, the first uncommon has to be a pathway, and many of them are, but the pathways are all 9 mana, with the exception of one that was 13 mana, and I'm guessing that that's just an error and it's actually going to cost 9 mana. But they're all 9 mana to convert 2 gems to a color. So this one is 9 mana to convert 2 gems to green. And then this one's the Branch Loft and Boulder Loft, which means that if you actually achieve the land forming, then you're going to get a token. I'm guessing that that token is going to be to convert 2 gems to whatever the opposite color is. So I want to say that Branch Loft is the green-white pathway ? But yeah, so this one is going to make the green on this side. If you use a land forming, it's going to make a support that produces that converts 2 gems to white, which is really nice because it's only 9 mana. And if you aren't using land forming on it, it's just another land that converts to just green. So super big win. Bright Climb, once again, it's another pathway, converts 2 to white. If you complete the land forming, it's going to convert 2 more gems to another color also, which is a huge win. Clearwater Pathway, once again, another pathway. This one's going to convert to blue. The other side's going to convert to black, so super useful. Crag Crown Pathway is converting gems to green. Once again, the land forming is going to convert gems to another color. Corrigan War Leader. This thing is sweet. So this gives us an uncommon leader. It's 14 mana, which is a bit expensive, but it's a leader warrior. So once again, it's going to be able to suck up all of those core ally tokens because those are also warriors. But if that wasn't enough, it also has at the beginning of combat on your turn, your other warrior creatures get +X until end of turn. X is the number of warrior cards you control. Now, there are going to be supports with the warrior subtyping, so you'll be able to have more than 3. But nonetheless, even if you just have 3 warriors, if you include this, that's still going to be an added +9 damage that you can do in a turn. So Kargan War Leader is definitely a cool card that you're going to want to have, and very conveniently is only an uncommon. Chord Blademaster is on here not because it's overpowered by any stretch of the imagination, but just that there's a lot of things that you're going to be able to do with it, and at an uncommon level, or at an uncommon rarity, it's going to be a really good card for newer players. It's 7 mana for a 2/2 with double strike, which is already good, and then it has as long as you control an equipment support, your warrior creatures gain double strike. So all your warriors are going to get double strike for this, which is incredibly powerful. Double strike is quite possibly the strongest offensive ability in the game. And so, or, evergreen. So this giving it to all your warriors for having an equipment is really, really good. Especially if you factor in that there's so much equipment in the set already, it's going to be pretty easy for you to get equipment down. And then if you pair this with, say, our previous warrior leader, that warrior leader, which is going to buff up from being able to make a whole bunch of tokens, is then going to also get double strike and smash your opponent's face super hard. This card is going to pair incredibly well with the new Nahiri Planeswalker, because the new Nahiri Planeswalker, her first ability is going to make core ally tokens, which are warriors, and is going to create an equipment. Her third ability also creates an equipment, so either way, if you use this with her, that's a heck of a lot of power that you can get just for having the Planeswalker in this card, which is really cool. Needle Verge Pathway is our next pathway. It converts 2 to red and then creates a support that I'm guessing is also going to convert to another color. Reclaim the Wastes is something that for some reason we needed, but honestly I'm glad that it exists. It's a 8 mana spell and it converts 7 gems to green. We're kind of pretending that the kicker doesn't exist, even though I'm sure that I'll actually wind up using it. So if you drain 4 mana from your hand, you'll fetch the first card with land forming from your library, put it in your hand. This just adds to all the other green gem conversion that we've already got in the game, but this one's really nice because it definitely only converts gems to green. So we're going to be losing Circuitous Route, that thing's going out of standard, and in its place, we get this thing, which is just going to be better. So, I mean, unless you were playing a gate deck, but a lot of green gem conversion decks are just playing a bunch of green gem conversion spells. So yeah, Reclaim the Wastes is definitely the best common. It's actually the only common on my chase list, but is absolutely busted bonkers good. And the art is beautiful. I love the art on this card. Riverglide Pathway is the pathway that I was telling you about that for some reason is 13 mana. I don't know. I think that's just a bug, or not a bug, but it's an error, I think. I think it's going to be 9 mana, but it's going to convert to blue, and the flip side is going to convert to red. So the flip side, they flip in paper, the land forming token. I'm guessing that the token, the Lava Glide Pathway, is just going to be a land. So the last card on this list is Skyclave Pickaxe. This is an absolute beast of an uncommon. It just does so much. It's 10 mana. It's an equipment that is going to gain 2 mana in your hand whenever a creature you control attacks. And it has, when the support enters the board, convert 4 gems to your Planeswalker's colors. So this is a support that converts to your Planeswalker's colors, which means that if you're using a mono green deck, this is just going to guaranteed convert to green. So yet another support or another card that enters the battlefield and converts gems to green. But that's not it. It also has landfall, so whenever you match 4 or more gems, your first creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. So not only is this going to potentially create a bunch of landfalls, but it's also going to make it so that your first creature gets buffed up from those landfalls. And so let's pretend for a moment that we're running this in, I don't know, no one would do this, but a Leafkin Avenger deck. This is going to come out. It's going to convert gems to green. Leafkin Avenger is going to burn your opponent's face. And then if there was any landfall done, the Leafkin Avenger is going to get more powerful for all of your other subsequent green gem conversions. So yeah, green gem conversion got a huge win in this set between Skyclave Pickaxe and then that previous green gem converter. But nonetheless, it's taking a big hit at the same time because it's losing a lot of removal. So There are 63 total cards that I'm keeping my eye on from all the way from common to masterpiece range. There are a lot of amazing cards in Zendikar Rising, so I hope that you guys all have really good luck on your first day and first, just the duration of the set, but that those first day pulls for you, for those of you who have been saving. I'm really looking forward to making a bunch of content on this for you guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. Let me know which rares, commons, and uncommons have caught your eye that you're excited for, and I'll see you in the next one.